She is the founder and managing director of Vestra LLC, a healthcare consulting firm in Magee, and currently consults with Rush Health Systems in Meridian. As a strong representative for women in the business world, Morgan was recognized as one of the 50 leading businesswomen in Mississippi. I want you all to know that she has a heart for healthcare and how important it is for Mississippi to have rural healthcare, because most of our citizens in Mississippi live in rural areas. And so I give you Morgan Dunn.
Thank you, Laura. Thank y'all for having me on this short notice. I'm not really sure how y'all want me to go about this, but I felt like I'll tell you a little bit about myself, what makes me different, because that's really what we want to know, is what makes you different. And then open it up for you guys to ask me specific questions. So, that good? Okay. Obviously, I just had a great introduction by Laura. Morgan Dunn, I'm running for District 3 House of Representatives. Let me give you three things about me that I think kind of separate me. Number one, I'm a business leader. Who better to drain the swamp than someone that's never been a part of it, right? That's okay, y'all. I think that's one of the things that we do not see unity behind President Trump is because we still have politicians. We've got to get someone that understands his agenda and where we're wanting to take this country. And to bring that greatness, make America great again, we got to get it to Mississippi. Number two, I'm a healthcare executive. It's great background music. Number two, I'm a healthcare executive. I've spent the last 15 years in healthcare, rural healthcare, and I've seen firsthand what Obamacare has done to our country's healthcare industry. It has absolutely destroyed it and has disrupted it and crippled rural health. To date, I think we're up to 87 hospital closures in rural America. 87. So that is extremely important of understanding healthcare and how to fix it. I can guarantee you this, I'm the only candidate that can fix it, that absolutely understands it from a consumer perspective, from a provider perspective, and from an insurer perspective. All three have specific things that have to happen to ensure that our healthcare industry is safe. Number three, and the most important, I know Mississippi. I'm born and raised. I know Mississippi like the back of my hand. I know it as a wife. I know it as a mother. I know it as a business owner. Now that's knowing Mississippi, I'm saying. That's understanding all aspects of it. That's probably the most important thing that I can bring to the table with my knowledge and expertise in business and healthcare, is the fact that I know Mississippi. You look at our district, District 3. People kind of chuckle when I tell them this. Look at our district. East, West, and the belly have been misrepresented. We have the highest number of counties than any other district that in 2015 had negative 3.9% to 0% small business growth. The highest percentage of counties in any other district. That's a problem. Now, you asked me what makes me tick, can be answered in four words. Chris, Sawyer, Ava, and Win. Mama Bear comes out and wife comes out. If it's not good for them, it's not good for all of us, I can guarantee you. And that's how we have to approach it. We have to approach what we're trying to do and our legacy on how it impacts not only our spouse, but how does it impact our children and our grandchildren. Because I'm going to tell you, they don't have a future right now. Their future is going to be paying off debt. I like to ask people when they say I'm a Trump supporter, I want you to ask me why I'm a Trump supporter. Of course, it's a great bandwagon to be on. But I can tell you that the true politicians are saying it so they can get reelected. Ask them why they're a Trump supporter. Because Trump doesn't go where the puck is. He goes where the puck is going to be. That's business. That's strategy. That's how it works. That's why I like Trump. Now let's talk about some Trumpisms. He doesn't need another politician. He's got plenty of those. He doesn't need another attorney. I'm not one. They reported to me. He doesn't need somebody that understands the game of politics. And I know that y'all understand what I say when I say the game of politics. He doesn't need that. He needs someone with business experience and common sense. That's few and far between in DC right now. Common sense. I am that candidate. I'm your candidate to take the true common sense approach that impacts us as taxpayers, us as people that want to be successful, and us as people that want to retire in Mississippi. They're few and far between too. I'm one of them. I could live anywhere in the United States. I've been offered jobs left and right throughout the United States. I'm in McGee because I want to be, because my family's in McGee. As Laura said, my husband, thankfully, loves me and supports me, because y'all can only imagine how tough it is to do something like this. Our 8-year-old and our 14-year-old both have baseball games tonight, and he coaches the 8-year-old. So he is wrangling the sheep or the herding the cats, or however you want to call it, with our kids, and it takes a village, and that's why he's not with me. But his grandfather started a restaurant 55 years ago. We're third generation in McGee. We're not going anywhere. I want to stay in McGee. But in order for me to stay in McGee, I have to get our kids want to stay in McGee. And I don't know if y'all understand how hard it is to recruit people to love what you do and love your state. The best people to make this state great are the ones that we home grow. And right now we're the highest state that loses our millennials. Third highest, I think. We have to stop that. They are our future. And if we don't give them reasons to stay, we are going to go away as a state and be completely irrelevant. And I refuse to let that happen. Whether it's this race or the next, I'm on a mission. Time is now to make a stand and make a difference. Now, I want your vote first and foremost. I need your vote. Y'all know how many people are in this race. Don't let me lose by one, because that is quite the possibility. Don't let me lose by one vote. So I do need your vote on June 5th. So I would like to open it up for questions and see if I can answer them.
I got a question for you.
Can another candidate ask a question? No, I'm just kidding.
I hope.
You got to vote for him then. No, just kidding.
I can't vote in this district, it'll be illegal. What I talk about is that if we closed most of the VA hospitals down so the veterans could go to these rural hospitals and not have to travel great distances, this would give money to the rural hospitals, give the veterans to go to places that's close to home, and then keep the main hospitals open that have to have problems that they have to take care of. That way they'd have the good service of a private hospital and not the VA hospital that almost let me die. So I think that would make a big difference. I'd like your opinion on that.
First off, thank you for your service. First off, we should be ashamed as a society where we have allowed our VA and our veterans to seek care after they have risked their life. We should be absolutely ashamed. That company that I started, that population health company, I went to the guy, started talking with the VA program to see if we could contract and get our veterans close to home. didn't want to talk about it. We have to blow that system up. I mean, it doesn't work. Not only do we have to completely restructure the VA Veterans Affairs, you have to understand the insurance provider side as well. Because we can talk about privatizing it, but if TRICARE is not contracted or whatever coverage that our veterans have, if they're not in network with that local hospital, you couldn't use the local hospital anyway.
I believe that in my estimation, just finishing up with that, my estimation is that we're going to have money that we close down the VA hospitals, we're going to save probably 25–30% of the money. Secondly, that would go to the private doctors and the private hospitals to make more profit, for the rural hospitals to be more viable. The money would go directly from the government to them for the care. You maybe just skip the whole, I don't know exactly how they pay their stuff, but I know when you look at the waste at the VA hospitals and the care, it's terrible. I mean, I don't know what it is now, but when I came back from Vietnam, I almost died in the waiting room. My wife took me to a regular hospital that cost us $30,000. And a 20-year-old spending $30,000 for a hospital bill from Vietnam is silly. And I think that we have to, as a country, we have to take the VA and try to make it where, you know, what does a 75, 80-year-old man have to travel 75 miles to a hospital when he's got one 5 miles from there? That's something we should demand and make happen. That's my feeling.
My grandfather passed away January the 7th of this year. 97 years old, God rest his soul, World War II veteran, and lived in McGee, and he would have to drive to Jackson, to the hospital up here, for anything. My 87-year-old grandmother still took care of him until the day he died, and he died in his home with healthcare nurses around him. And she drove him 45 minutes away for every doctor visit. I understand where you're coming from, and it needs to be fixed.
You know I'm going to have a question.
Yes, and
After you get to DC, they may give you a choice, they may not, of which committee to be on. Which committee or committees would you like to serve on?
it's a good question. So obviously, I want to be on health. I want to be on health because I can fix it. I also want to be maybe energy and commerce. It needs to be committees that impact District 3. And that's what we need to focus on. While also, you know, they're not going to put me on a committee that Palazzo might be on, or the others. That doesn't hurt to ask, but obviously I want to be on appropriations. That's a good committee to be on. Those would probably, but healthcare would be my top, that I could really justify being on it.
What's your opinion of foreign aid?
You know, this question got asked the other day.
What is it?
Foreign aid. What's my opinion on foreign aid? And, you know, I think every question to an answer has some type of hypotheticals to it, right? In business, at least our business, if we don't have revenue to cover the expenses, you cut expenses. If it's not supporting our military strategy for that aid, you gotta cut expenses. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I'm just wondering, would you vote to get rid of foreign aid to countries, or would you vote to increase it? What would be your opinion?
Well, the art of war. There's a strategy behind everything, and carte blanche saying that I would support it or not support it would be foolish of me. You know, I think we have one of the strongest generals right now that's ever held office, General Mattis. And understanding his strategy and his decisions around, because I think financial aid needs to come from a military perspective for our allies. You know, we want to keep them off of our soil, right? We don't want anybody coming to us. We want to go to them. That would justify financial aid. To build schools, to provide support when we have dilapidated infrastructure and dilapidated schools here, I would have to question it. I would have to understand the strategy behind it before committing to something like that or not committing to it. Is that better?
Well, Vince, just to follow up, out of 162 countries, give or take, depending on what day it is, what you call a country, I think 140 countries we actually support with our dime. We even support countries that militarily we have no dog in the hunt, shouldn't be there giving them money in the first place. In fact, we send Vietnam right now money for their military. Why would we send Vietnam money for a communist military? So I think that if she's on the appropriations, I would think that you would look at each one that you fund, say, yes, we do this one, no, we don't. It's got to be in our best interest. Not only that, their country, but our best interest where that dime is spent. Talking about money to the VA, I mean, you're talking about lots of money out of 162 countries, we fund 140. To me, that's a little overbearing.
Well, I would just ask you to do this. When you get to Washington, just remember that we give millions and billions of dollars. We give them to countries like Saudi Arabia, and they have more money than they know to do with it because they sell us oil. And what they do with the money, tax money that we send them, what that does is it keeps that door open for corporations in this country to be able to interact with them. I don't see that as being a lawful or even a moral obligation to the taxpayer of the United States. That's one thing. We give money to Mexico, they do absolutely nothing except help people cross our southern border. That's just, okay, that's beyond being a fool. I wish there was another word I could think of. But I just don't get that. You know, we give money to Pakistan and Afghanistan and countries all over the world. Where in the world is that in the Constitution? Where in the world are we obligated to do such things as that? Whenever our bridges and roads need repair here, what could be done for the VA if half of the foreign aid was cut out? They could you could have the greatest VA hospitals that the world's ever seen. So anyway, I would just ask you to keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
Do you understand what the association is between the Farm Bill and food subsidies?
Not fully. I can't really figure out why that they would be in there. But
Well, one of the things that I'm very much concerned about is the senator that we have just stepped down made sure that food subsidies were well filled through the Farm Bill. And what bothers me about that is food is a sustenance of life. We have to have it. But there's nowhere in the Constitution that says that that the government is supposed to supply our food. The farmers like it because they have some place to put their crops when they overproduce. And giving money to the farmers through those food subsidies seems counterintuitive to help the farmer grow his food, which is his main business, and then give it to somebody who does nothing to produce it. And what I'm getting at is the appropriations process has been essentially obliterated for the last several years. And our former senator, who just stepped down, was chairman of the Appropriations Committee. We know that since last September, he hadn't held an Appropriations Committee meeting. So how did they produce that budget?
that's rhetorical, right?
That's rhetorical. Well, they told us how they did it. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Paul Ryan, and Mitch McConnell got in a room and they produced the budget. That is not the process that's supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen in the House. All revenue bills are supposed to originate in the House because the House is supposed to be the representative body for the people, and the people produce that money.
I see where you're going.
Do you see where I'm going?
I do.
Our monies and the fruits of our labors are being hijacked. We had a long discussion about the fruits of our labor at the board meeting last week. So that's an important discussion to have with Congress.
It is. that went back to the whole revenue expenses. And I don't know if y'all know my stance on regulation. The more regulation you have, the bigger the government. I mean, that's life, that's how it works. We have to reduce our regulation to reduce the size of the government. Yes, sir?
So would you be willing to lay off people in the federal government if, in order to reduce the size of government?
Absolutely. But that's come from somebody that had to lay off people in a company that I worked for, that I loved, heart, soul, blood, sweat, tears, time away from my family, that my dad started 35 years ago. We had 2,000.
No argument from me. I'm glad to hear somebody say.
No.
Yeah.
We had 2,000 employees, and Obamacare ripped that company away from us. 2,000 employees. And I had to lay off. We had 3 separate sets of layoffs. But yet, we have the highest percentage of government employees in the state of Mississippi than any other state. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
What about the wall?
I love this question. I do, I love it, like it gets me all excited. So about 10 years ago, I was in Douglas, Arizona. Mind you, the last 15 years, I have been consulting in healthcare all across the United States. All across the United States. And Douglas, Arizona, I went down there because he was having some trouble staying open. And I went and looked at his ER, looked at his hospital operations. We drove around the city, went to the border, look him up, he's on the border. He had to keep 3 and 4 times the amount of snake antivenom in his ER for illegals that were coming through over the border and ended up getting snake bit in the ER. Do you know who pays for that antivenom? That's like $15,000 a dose.
Wow.
That would be us, for people that don't have they don't have a penny to their name. The wall needs to go up. Not only for us as taxpayers, but my friends in Douglas, Arizona that have to fight it.
What kind of snakes?
Rattlesnakes.
Or if you're going to Washington, so don't get bit up there either.
There are plenty of snakes there as well.
I'm from Mississippi, we got snake boots.
More, there's a term that's used by a lot of politicians on TV, and I know everybody sees the same ads that I do. The word conservatism gets thrown around. I know who their campaign manager. Usually you can look at a person that's running for office, whether congressional or senatorial. You can look at their campaign managers and where they came from. So you pretty much see who's handpicked. You know the gentleman, the lobbyist up in D.C., former governor of our state, and what he's done to our politics here in this state. In fact, he pretty much runs the state of Mississippi. My question to you is, what is your definition of conservatism?
Well, are we happy with the Supreme Court's decision today? The gambling, and basically saying it was unconstitutional for Congress to set laws that were state-driven?
I'm happy with it.
That's a big win
It is a big
for the
win.
conservatives.
It's a good win for the 10th Amendment.
It's a big win. And I do think that conservative is defined by whoever you're talking to. My conservatism is decrease the government. You got to reduce regulation. That's the first step. Constitution, that's what we're built on. That's going to drive the true decisions that we make day in and day out. I'm a strong conservative. I'm a realist. With 435 members in the House, you got to have some realistic approach to getting things done. I'm not saying go and give up what you're built on, but realistically, we have to push, and it's going to be a process of getting the government where it needs to be, and that's out of our business. I think we spend our money better than the government does, so we need to reduce more taxes. It was a huge win for us. Second Amendment shouldn't even be a question. It shouldn't even come out of anybody's mouth. Second Amendment's not our problem. And I know y'all have heard me talk about this. Mental health is our problem. We have a mental health epidemic in the United States. And you can lump the opioid crisis in there with it. It's a mental health problem, not a gun problem. Let me keep going.
Well, to reiterate, I guess to go a little bit further, I define it as pro-God, pro-family, pro-country. When you say mental health, I look at the family structure. What has caused a lot of this that we've got going out there is to break up other families, the welfare role. It's the welfare dollars taking the place of the daddy in the family. It's hit my family, so I'm talking about from personal tragedy, what's happened in my family as well with the son that has gone wayward. We've all had kids that have gone the wayward way, going away from what we taught them. So pro-family, pro-gun, pro-country, pro-military, against abortion. I mean, those are the criteria to me as conservatism. And we can define some other things, but I think those are the core issues, and I think you get on most of the core issues.
Yes. I am your definition of conservative. And I am pro-life. And I am strong military. I could go in deep with all of those, but if y'all want me to, I can.
You have free religious freedom to that, so that we don't get kicked out of our businesses for making a stand and that kind of thing.
Repeat the question?
Add religious freedom, religious rights,
Yes.
that the Christians are not constantly persecuted, and they have as much freedom as everyone else. It's trying to be taken away from us.
Yes. My kids go to Simpson Academy. It's a Christian school. I still believe, our values were built on, in God we trust. So yes.
Morgan, what time did you have to?
I'm going to have to go. I probably could do one more if it's a burning question.
I also want to hear you address a little bit, because you sound just like the person you're going to take his place. And I thought he was great. First time he was spoken here, we voted him in. And it seemed like it was very quickly that he succumbed to the pressure of other, House representatives or whatever, and just really started watering down the way he voted and that kind of thing. He became a rhino, in my opinion, very quickly. So speak to your own character, your life experiences, why you think that you'd be able to stand up to lobbyists and other fellow House representatives that would not want to vote the way you would want to vote.
So, number one, I'm not the party pig, obviously. And that only makes me work harder. And I have personally worked my tail off for the last 16 years trying to make a difference in Mississippi, and we were actually in 5 states. So, but I lived in, and I mean, when I tell y'all worked my tail off, I was in D.C. a lot, talking to every single member. And you see where it got us. I was put on a payment reform committee. Not by our congressional leaders. I was working within the federal government, trying to work on policy changes that positively impact our rural providers, because we're the last they think about. And Health Resources Services Administration, they put me on that payment committee. I went to the White House. President Obama and all the secretaries were there. 65 people, and I'm walking in and I tell Tom, he's a deputy director, and he says, Morgan, I said, I'll call you back and let you know how it goes, because I'm pretty sure we probably won't get anything done, but I'll call you back and let you know. He said, good, because you're representing rural America. I was the only one in that place that represented rural America. Now, I got to tell you guys, that sounds like a pat on the back for me, but it's not. 75% of our United States is rural. We should have had 75% of the representation. Or at least 25%. I didn't get there by not working hard. And I didn't get there by sitting back and letting someone tell me what to do. Now, I had fights with my boss every now and then, which was my dad at the time, and if y'all have never worked for a family business, I recommend it. It gets interesting at times. But I built my drive and my character around people and my children and my family and populations that can't fight for themselves. That's what I've built my entire career around. I'm pretty persuasive, and I really don't like no. I'm not there to make friends.
Courtney, would you do us a favor? Tell us your website, how we get there,
MorganDunnForCongress.com.
and can we donate money to that?
Yes, you can, and it is welcome, because TV is expensive, let me just tell you. I had no idea. I'm a grassroots kind of girl, because that's how we do it in rural. That is not how we do it in the political atmosphere. For some reason, if you don't get on TV, you are not meant to be. So,
Tell us one more thing. Tell us about the fundraiser they held for you in Washington.
yeah, I didn't have one in Washington, D.C. Might would have helped, but
Well, we understand that the party held some fundraisers for some of the candidates for District 3, but they didn't hold one for you.
no, I did not have that opportunity. Thank you. Thank y'all so much for having me. June 5th, vote for Morgan Dunn.